should or maybe want to, but now it kind of just pinpoints it. It's, being clean, having order, being polite, being punctual, and then all of it, how it ties to concentration. And this is something that our teachers here teach all the time, but they never really elaborate that much. So I asked Nat if he can do some research and kind of teach us the UG5, because I've translated so many of it on Sunday, and I thought it was going to be really easy, but then I never really had good content for it. So when Nat had to do it, he's like, this is not that easy to teach, because a lot of our times our teacher just talks about these are the 5 things that you should do, but how does it tie into meditation? How does it tie into what we're doing? And actually it ties in many ways because it's habits, but not only are we emphasizing how it can help you in a spiritual sense, we're also explaining how it helps you in the practical material world as well, which all of us, we're not trying to reach enlightenment just yet. We're all here as practitioners trying to use it for our life, right? We're not doing it at the capacity of our teachers who are monks who've given up everything. So for us, UG5 is going to be very practical in not only helping us on a day-to-day and what we're doing in our life, around people, trying to just make it in the world, but in return too, that symbiotic in terms of how it's going to help us cultivate ourselves. So not only are you helping yourself out in the world as you interact with people, but this is also going to help you in your meditation practice as well, and they go hand in hand, and UG5 is how it goes hand in hand. But even if you meditate, you're going to do those things anyways. Yeah, go ahead.
What is it?
Goodness. Universal Goodness 5. Yep. And it's something that our habit has been pushing for 8 years. And I mean, we're an example. The center, go anywhere, and it's super clean. It's because we implement these UG5 principles. And it's important for members of our center to know, because it's kind of like a part of our principles that people talk about all the time. So it's just good to have this understanding of, oh, what is this? So thank you, Nat. That was an excellent job.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it. Unless the monk did it. All right, Sam.
Right. And these habits will build and build. And like I said, habits are what's important towards ultimately having prosperity in this life and the next. So the habits that they have here for the UG5 are cleanliness, orderliness, politeness, punctuality, and concentration. And the implementation of these, they can bring you, like I said, prosperity in this life and in future lives, and in the spiritual world and the material world. I'll kind of group them in order, and because they have a lot of overlap. So like when it comes to cleanliness and orderliness, I'll usually group that. I think we all know what cleanliness is. Orderliness is just kind of arranging things, from like small to big, big to small, and putting them in their proper space. But there's actually like I said, this was such a big topic that I think my sister went to Thailand, and again the vice abbot was giving a talk, and he was going through the UG5, and he never got past cleanliness. That's how big a deal it was for him. Did you say he spoke on like 4 hours or something? 4 hours on clean. I can't do that. I might struggle for the next 5 minutes, honestly. But for him, you can see how important it was, and I mean, he just breaks things down to the minutia. I mean, I wish you guys understood Thai. I am also here in a great, a good part of the reason I'm here is just because of his ability to explain. I've listened to him, in person a couple of times, but he had this really good talk on the 38 blessings that was given in Thai, and that's kind of like one meal. Same thing with Seren. If you guys ever come on Sunday, Seren is usually the ones that gives the talks. He kind of said the same thing. Those talks are just, they're amazing. But cleanliness is a big deal for this temple. In fact, it takes on another dimension whenever you talk about the temple and cleanliness, because it also, everything given to the monastic community is out of generosity, right? Now, if you give something to someone, something that you want for yourself, but you just want to give it to them because you think they can do better with it or become a better person with it, and and then you realize they're not taking as good a care as you would have of it, it's not a good feeling, right? Like I gave you a nice car and you ran it to the ground. If I known that, I wouldn't have given it to you. So it shows respect and gratitude, for the act of generosity that people give. Now Kunyai, she was really big on cleanliness, and I mean you can see how cleanliness affects the mind. If you imagine that this room was just filled with like filth, and enough room to meditate. Just imagine in between the spaces, books and paper, and all sort of clothing and stuff like that. You can probably imagine that your meditation wouldn't be as calm and as peaceful. There's something about orderliness and the mind, and the mind is really a reflection of it. But it's very interesting. It's just like smiling. I think a lot of people know, obviously when you're happy, you smile, right? But it gets to a point where smiling can actually invoke happiness. So, so you shake your head, it's true. I mean, people know it. For some reason, there's like a physiological connection after some point that those two are so connected that normally you think that happiness brings smiling, but after a while, smiling can bring happiness. So it's very similar with the cleanliness. People who have a clean mind, they're going to have a clean environment. But you may not have a clean mind, but if you start with a clean environment, it can work its way to having a clean mind. And so that's why it's very important to be clean if you're trying to pursue, meditation and get to that next level. And this isn't, it doesn't just bring spiritual success, it brings material success as well. So Booker T. Washington, which I think a wrestler shares his name, but it's not him. It's not about the famous historical figure. He's got I don't know if people know his story here, but he was born a slave. He was chosen to be a house slave in the plantation, and the owner was very meticulous about being clean. Right? So he instilled that cleanliness and the orderliness into everyone who worked inside the house. Okay, so this became very instilled in the young Booker T from a very young age, to the point if he ever was out and about, he would always just, it's just his habit. He'd pick things up and clean it, throw it away, put it in order. At some point he wanted to gain education. He applied for school and was turned down, but they said, you know what, you can go ahead and you can be the janitor here. Right? But he did such a good, meticulous job that people just became very fond and appreciative of him. And they realized how important he was to that element of the school. And if you go from a place to where you realize how much value someone brings, you just really appreciate them. And they knew that he wanted to educate himself, so they helped him along that endeavor. Well, as a result, he became a doctor, and he was instrumental into bringing education to the masses and to the African American community. So it shows you just how cleanliness on its own is such a characteristic and quality that can enhance your material life as well. Okay, where am I at here? Oh, it's very important not just to, you can hire someone to clean things, right? But it's important actually to do it yourself. Because one thing is you learn the process, you know how to clean things. And then you can learn some creativity, because when you do things over and over and over, you start thinking, okay, how can I do this better? All right, so that instills some kind of creativity for you that can be carried over to other aspects of life. All right, it also helps you learn orderliness. Right, so like I said, there's a lot of overlap there, but there is some difference. But as you clean more and more, you tend to be more orderly too. And it teaches you, as you're becoming more and more orderly, when you learn how to put things in the proper place and organize, that can translate to mental processes as well. So, communication is about orderliness. Now, I don't think I've ever met someone who's very, very orderly that really couldn't communicate. If people were ever on the side of not being able to convey their thoughts, it's always because they're very disorganized individuals. So there's a tenuous relationship there too. But one thing it definitely teaches you, so did I go through all five? So yeah, I did cleanliness, orderliness, politeness, punctuality, and concentration. When you start making it a commitment, a schedule, a routine to clean, then you kind of start knowing how much time it takes. All right, so that helps with your punctuality. Okay. Now, punctuality is important because it's essentially time management. And if you ever meet someone who's very accomplished in life, it's really because they know how to manage their time. Yeah, and some of the most successful people I know, I mean, I don't see how they could. We all have the same 24 hours, they just do more with it. And it's just because of time management. And time management, now ultimately all this relates to meditation, because we ultimately believe that that's the gem that unlocks everything, all right? But there's just so many supporting factors that are necessary to get you to progress in meditation. Now, punctuality helps, time management helps, because when you're very punctual, when you're good with your time management, then when you set aside a block of time for something, that's what you do, right? So when you're setting aside a block of time for meditation, and you're good with time management, then when it comes time to meditate, that's what you do. I think one of the tips that sometimes I give people to remind themselves when they're meditating, because your mind likes to wander. You're going to think about this, you're going to think about that, you're going to try to problem solve. But that's not what you set the time aside for. You set the time aside to meditate. So be mindful of that. And when you can remind yourself of that, you can let go of whatever you weren't, that you were doing that you weren't supposed to do because you're supposed to be meditating. So good habits, they got to be cultivated. All right. And this is the process of trying to cultivate them, to point them out first of all, so you know what to cultivate, and then to put time into trying to cultivate them. Politeness is important because it's like an elevated form of mindfulness and compassion. It's being thoughtful of other people. I mean, if you're polite and someone's like asleep, then you care about them. You're like, okay, they're asleep. Let me not turn on the light, or let me turn on the TV some. Or hey man, can you talk a little bit softer? This person's asleep. I don't really want to disturb them. So it's connected again with some of the processes in the mind that contribute to compassion and mindfulness. Because again, mindfulness is a big part of meditation. When you're very polite, you're going to be mindful of other people, how they feel, and act accordingly to that. The root cause of a lot of conflict is self-indulgence. It's not being polite, not caring about people. Self-indulgent people, they don't care what other people think about them. They care only about what they want and their own ease and comfort. They probably lack commitment and motivation. Of course, self-indulgent parents are going to have self-indulgent children who also probably lack commitment and motivation. All of us are self-indulgent to some extent, so we need to watch out for that. I think we see it a lot, probably most around the holidays. First of all, the eating, Thanksgiving, stuff like that. But also with the time off, a lot of us tend to sleep in. And as a result, I think everyone does this, it's like a struggle to get back on track when it's starting to go back to work. So, we gotta always be attentive to some of our inclinations so that they don't get too out of hand. Because once you go down that road, it's hard to correct. It's a path of least resistance. It's something that, when I ordained once, I talked about it, and I don't really feel this way anymore. Maybe it's just because of the self-development, self-cultivation. But when I said at the time, I did, this was maybe 10, 15 years ago. But if we had no consequences, and I think this is one of the reasons why really, really rich families don't tend to maintain their wealth. Like if you looked up any of the really, really rich families, a lot of them are irrelevant now. But like the Vanderbilts and the Biltmores and all those guys, because they can do really whatever they want, right? And if you can do whatever you want, who wouldn't want to? Like I said, I don't really feel this way anymore, but I did at the time. I think some of you might. But who wouldn't want to party all night, drink as much as they want? Kind of just, all those vices. You have you don't have anything to worry about. So why not just completely self-indulge yourself? You're still good, you're still okay. In most eyes, you're still successful and prosperous because you have the wealth to kind of make up for any mishap. But it's easy to go down that route if you didn't have self-cultivation in mind. And I always kind of considered prosperity to be like an escalator. You know, I mean, you got to put effort just to stay where you're at. All right, if you just kind of go with the flow down the path of least resistance, you're losing ground. You got to put effort just to stay where you're at. If you want to progress, you got to put even more effort. And I'm saying escalator like going down, that you're trying to go up. And I'm sure as kids we always try to do that, right? We see the escalator going down, we try to outpace it on the way up. But if you just stand there, you're just going to go down. You got to put effort just to stay where you're at. You got to put a lot of effort to progress. There's an element of punctuality that also is connected with politeness. Like I said, a lot of these they have some overlap. If you're not punctual, then you're kind of being disrespectful to the people who sacrifice their time, because you don't know what they did in order to be punctual on their part. Like if you sacrificed a meal and woke up super early to pick up your friend to go to the airport or something that you committed to, and he's not ready, it's kind of like, I did my part, man. Come on, what are you doing? Or if you were say kids are trying to perform some kind of play for a VIP guy, and they practice weeks and weeks and weeks for this orchestra or play or whatever, and it's supposed to begin at 7. Everyone else shows up on time. The VIP guy doesn't. Of course, they're still going to go through with it, but I'm sure that they would feel a little bit bitter for the fact that the main person that they were doing this for didn't even care to show up on time. So it's really a lack of politeness and compassion, and just being dismissive of other people and the sacrifices that they might make and not being punctual. Okay, well, I'm pretty much done. Okay, I just wrapped up here. I think, again, all of this really relates ultimately to cultivating yourself and the mind, and trying to bring habits that will bring prosperity in the present life and in the future, and also in your material life and your spiritual life.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Nat didn't think he was going to have enough time or he didn't think that he was going to have enough material for the time, but I think he had plenty. And actually, we're going to have Simon shine on it, but maybe Simon will just have it for the next one.
Okay. Was this wisdom number 5?
No, this
No.
was UG5.
Oh, what's it? I don't. I know.
Remember punctuality, cleanliness?
No, I think-
you
I
took
don't-
notes on that all the time.
I did the wisdom, the 38 wisdoms. I didn't.
Okay, well,
yeah.
then you probably would have been able to add
Yeah,
that.
because when I had my notes of nothing, I mean, thank God I didn't do it
Yeah.
because.
So this is UG5. It's our abbot came up with these guidelines.